Don Draper, John Hamm, had many mistresses, but Mad Men Season 1 introduces the two saddest women Draper had affairs with. The Emmy-winning AMC series created by Matthew Weiner is now streaming in 4K on HBO Max. Mad Men's series premiere, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, begins with Don Draper visiting Midge Daniels, Rosemary DeWitt, in her New York City apartment. Don and Midge have been sleeping together for some time, and Draper even suggests they get married. At Sterling Cooper, Don attends a meeting with Rachel Menken, Maggie Siff, the owner of Menken's department store. Draper offends Rachel at the meeting, but they still share a mutual attraction as Don apologizes to his client. The big twist at the end of Mad Men's series premiere is that Don Draper is married with children. Don finally comes home to his wife, Betty, January Jones, and their young kids in upstate New York. Don Draper's philandering is one of Mad Men's recurring themes, but the two women Don cheats on Betty with in Mad Men Season 1 turn out to have tragic endings. What happens to Midge Daniels after Mad Men Season 1? Midge Daniels was a painter and illustrator who lived in Greenwich Village. When Mad Men begins, it's apparent that Don has been with her for a while. Draper practically lives in Midge's apartment when he stays in Manhattan and doesn't come home to Betty in Ossining. Midge knows about Betty but hates when Don talks about his wife. Don clearly cares about Midge and envisions a future together. When he receives a $2,500 bonus from Bert Cooper, Robert Morse, Draper drops by Midge's and suggests they fly to Paris together. However, Midge's lifestyle involves friendships with beatniks who populate her apartment and make fun of Don, the ad man. Later in Mad Men Season 1, Don stops coming around Midge's place when he realizes she's in love with a guy named Roy. Midge vanishes from Don's life until her sudden reappearance in Mad Men Season 4, Episode 12, Blowing Smoke, after Don has formed his new agency, Sterling Cooper Draper Price. When Midge resurfaces, she tries to coax Don into buying a painting. Upon returning to Midge's apartment, which she shares with her husband, Perry, John Ailes, Don realizes Midge has become a heroin addict. Don buys one of Midge's paintings for $120 in cash and walks out of her life for good. What happens to Rachel Menken after Mad Men Season 1? Rachel Menken and Don Draper gave into their attraction when she toured him around Menken's department store, and they kissed on the roof. However, Rachel harbored serious doubts about Don and kept their relationship professional, for a while. After admitting her feelings about Don to her sister, Rachel enters into a romantic relationship with Draper despite her reservations. However, Don burst his own illusion when, in a panic because Pete Campbell, Vincent Carthizer, learned he was really Dick Whitman, Draper asked Rachel to drop everything and run away with him. Rachel was disgusted at what kind of man Don was, that he could just leave his life and go on the run. That was the end of Don and Rachel's affair. In Mad Men Season 7, Don dreamed about Rachel before learning that she had died of leukemia. Draper visited Rachel's memorial and met her sister, who knew of and resented Don. Don Draper's many affairs in Mad Men sometimes ended disastrously, but Rachel Menken and Midge Daniels had the saddest conclusions of the lovers Don had throughout the series.